Welcome, friends, and welcome everyone to our evening together. It's going to be very fun and casual and hopefully very interesting. I could say a lot about each one of these great souls here, but I'm not going to. They're going to share themselves. I'll briefly introduce who they are, and then we'll jump right in. I'll start from left. Jitendra is the co-director of Ananda Online, which probably trains many hundreds of meditation students leading up to Kriya Yoga. It's guided from Ananda village, and he has been doing that for many years. Erin is the director of fundraising for Ananda worldwide, the most important job without which they will all probably not have much to do. Sundara is the spiritual director of the Expanding Light Retreat, which is, again, central to Ananda Village, if for any of you who have visited there. Kevala is a newer addition to the team. He has been at Ananda Village for 2 or 3 years now, and he lives at Chandi House, and he helps Erin with the fundraising. Navashan and Haley, who all of you already know, are co-managers of Ananda Valley Farm in Half Moon Bay, and Arivan is the director of Living Wisdom School here in Palo Alto. And I'm sure they will all share as we go into the evening and hear them speak more. And Lakshmi and I will sort of guide our conversations to make it interesting, to ask them questions, and hopefully inspiring for them too, and also inspiring for all of us to learn more about how they see their seva and Master's mission being guided through Ananda, because the people that you're looking at are an excellent sample of the global leaders taking Ananda into its next step and next stage. So, because there are 7 of you here, I'm going to ask questions. Not everybody may answer all questions. You guys can decide. You might want to hold the microphone and pass it around as whoever wants to answer whichever question, and hopefully we'll get to hear enough from all of you. Well, I'll start, and then maybe once everybody's warmed up, maybe you'll have more to say. Well, so that we can hear more about yourself in your own words, let me start with a question that's probably personal to each one of you. I know maybe Kevala is newer, but most of you, all of you have been around at least for 12 years or more with Ananda on this path. 10 years or more. If you were to look at yourself today and your own self, maybe 10 years ago, whatever comes to your mind as 1 or 2 things that you think are perhaps the most surprising changes or shifts in your own persona, if you were to really go back in time and think about what it was like to be 10 years younger, 12 years younger than you are now, and what you think has caused that shift in you, what that shift has been, whoever wants to start.
It always starts on the left. This was one of the things that gave me the most comfort when I started, was this idea. I don't remember if this is an exact quote, but I remember hearing people talk about it, I think also Swamiji, that you shouldn't measure your spiritual growth in less than 10-year increments. And that meant for the first 10 years of the spiritual path, I didn't have to measure at all, which was a great relief to me, actually, because when I looked at myself, I thought, it's kind of remarkable that I'm here at all and that I've stayed. But that was also the enduring sweetness of Swamiji, was that even when I was there, when I met him, I got to spend a bit over 3 years around him. I never felt like I didn't belong, even though objectively I probably didn't. And I think that's probably part of it, actually. Over the last 10 years, the biggest change is that I feel now that I belong. I don't feel that I'm great or excellent or accomplished, but I do feel that I belong on the path. I belong to my guru, I belong to Ananda, and I belong here. And that really, I think what I've discovered is that I always assumed that there was a certain level of proficiency required, just because everyone around seems so proficient. But that proficiency comes with knowing that you belong. This is one of the great fun things about working with kids is you can tell them that you never actually become an adult, you just start acting like one because you know what they're supposed to act like. And at some point there's a line you cross and it's like, oh, I'm now supposed to act like an adult, so I do, but nothing really changed. And so yeah, now I get to belong. I belong here, I belong on the path because I show up every day and I do my best. And that can be enough. And that can be more than enough. When you start to see longer cycles over 10 years, I'm now at the point where I have had friends come and I was like, oh, they're going to be here forever. And then, wait, where'd they go? So the fact that, yeah, I'm still here gives me a lot of comfort. And it used to be something I felt a little bit more insecure about. And now I feel a lot more calm in it. Like, yeah, I belong.
I guess in many ways I don't feel any different than I did 10 years ago, and myself, I feel like I'm the same person and have it's hard to say I feel different than I do, except, when I first came to Ananda, I immediately felt like I was home. And I don't think I had that thought, oh, I'm home and this is going to be the rest of my life, but it was just a very natural, when I reflect on that, everything felt totally natural. I was comfortable with the people I was around. I was very happy to be getting immersed in the teachings. And I think that still feels, I still feel like I'm absolutely at home. I love everybody here. But what I feel, I guess, has changed the most is just my own knowing of that and my own connection to Master. And to just feel that deepening connection really all the time, that I'm thinking of Master more and more. I'm inviting him into my life more and more. In those idle moments, that's where my mind goes more and more. And I'm really grateful for that, to just start to feel that I'm maybe diminishing a little bit and Master is coming in. So I hope that continues, and I hope that in 10 years it'll be even less of me.
It's still surprising how, maybe it's not surprising, but just how many things the body and everything relating to the ego gets so full of tension and stress about any number of things, and feeling as though all of that ego stuff can still happen and be amplified in certain situations, and yet still be willing to do what is needed while all that's happening, because there's a knowing that on the soul level it's the right thing to do. And so I would say that that's the most surprising for me, is just any situation that would have caused any kind of tension or stress, you just, in the past, would just run away from and just not even deal with. But now, knowing that there's a divine purpose most of the time behind it, because it's being asked of by Master, by Guru Bhais, by people who I trust, that it's for kind of soul growth, it's like I can more and more be okay with being in a situation that in the past I would have ran away from all the time, and now just living in those dual realities. The ego reality is still happening, all of the baggage that comes with that, and yet still doing it because it's the right thing to do. And so it's just, I'm still surprised by it and happy that that's the case, and hopefully I can just be more and more. And when you're in it, it just feels like it's never going to go away for the whole lifetime, so you just don't even assume that it's going to pass. I think being grateful that even if that is the case for the rest of my life, being okay with that, and just try to keep doing what the right thing is. So that's what's, I think, most surprising to me at this point.
I certainly can't measure the spiritual path in 10-year increments, but 10 years ago, if you had come and told me when I was working as a mountain guide that I'd be spending my time in an office at a church mainly doing accounting work, there's no way I would have believed you at all. And I think that speaks to the progress I've experienced just in the last few years is my ability now to not define who I am by what I'm doing, but knowing that it's who I am at a soul level as a yogi, and that, how I serve each day is defined by my attunement and my relationship with God and the Guru. So,
when I first came to Ananda in 2007, I was just finishing up being a wedding coordinator. I coordinated 40 weddings before I came here. And I had recently met Bharat, Nayaswami Bharat, because he came to North Carolina and I was a nature educator at the time. And I visited him here at Ananda, and I remember the very first day, the very first tour, I just told him when we went to the Hermitage, I said, and I don't know why I said this, and I said, I feel like the only purpose of my life is to serve Master's work. And that's been the one constant throughout my 16 and a half years here at Ananda. And, I've worked at the Hermitage, Expanding Light, different things. Now I'm at the Expanding Light full time. And I realized it doesn't matter what it is. I was telling Nayaswami Pranaba this the other day. I said, Pranaba, I don't care if I work at the Expanding Light or wherever, because it's all just this divine service. But if I want to look at how things have changed over the last 10 years for me, I'd say it would be, I remember when Swami, one of his last talks at the Expanding Light, at the Yogananda Amphitheater, and he said, you should all believe that you can become Jivan Muktas this life. And I thought, that's, of course, for others, and I believed it. And I can say that is what I want this life. It's like I want God alone. And I've always thought that intellectually, but it's being more on a cellular level, that's the only purpose of it. And like Navashan was saying, it's like, even if we have our own different ego stuff going on, we have this challenges that we're working with, it's like, bring it on. It's all God.
For me, I think what surprises me about my growth over the last 10 years or so is that my willingness keeps increasing. Even that I am willing. I mean, there's times where, just looking back, it's like, who was that person that was saying yes all along the way? It's not rational. And just more and more tuning into that part of myself that's saying yes to Master, saying yes to God. It still surprises me, and I love what you said, Nabashan, just that there can be that other, ego part of ourselves that's resisting or would rather not or whatever, but there's always that underlying willingness that, and there's, just so much more joy in that. Not just saying yes because I should, or it's the right thing, or other people expect me to, or any of that, but really saying yes from that deeper place of just love for God, love for Master, dedication, commitment to, this work and sharing this with everyone. It's more and more that, I think maybe at first it was, wanting to be happier, wanting to, just for ourselves. I think we all kind of experience that kind of maybe is what initially motivates us. And then just to go deeper in that and realize, I don't want this just for myself. I want everyone to have this, and just that deepening and expanding and just that doesn't end either. I think that's what's really beautiful about getting to be in community and see so many people that have been on the path for many, many decades that are still deepening and still growing and still, it's just so beautiful. It's such a reassurance that it doesn't have to end. Like we can just keep going deeper in that. And that's all I have to say.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers.
Just to use one mic for maybe? Anyway. Yeah, 10 years. So I think that a few points would be an increasing clarity and awareness of the significance of Swamiji's importance in this life, in discipleship to Master, and really in every aspect of my spiritual life. When I first met Swami, I think it was like 2007, and I knew he was a great soul. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I was still, in many ways, blind to his true self, his true essence, and his relationship in my life. He was this very wise, very great soul, but I didn't yet recognize the importance that his relationship to me was going to be in this lifetime. And I did my best, with being with Swami and trying to tune into that. But then especially after he left the body is where it really came in more clear that just how important it is for me to continue to cultivate that relationship, and how when I pull back in that, everything suffers. So, because it's sometimes there's so much going on, and there's so many masters, and we have Guruji and Divine Mother, and then fill in the blank with all the others. And so I think that one, it's just the seeing more and more the importance of investing in another very important relationship next to Master, which is Swamiji. So that, and I feel very blessed in that. And I guess the last thing is just, I would say that in 10 years, I think I'm increasing my ability to listen. I think that, let's say 10 years ago or before, poor Master had to yell. I mean, he was like, Jitendra, don't do that, or whatever he had to tell me. And I just couldn't hear it. And I was like, oh, Master, you must want me to do this. And then, I gave him a hard time. I was, very stubborn, and God bless him, his unconditional love and patience with me. But I see that importance as we see in the story with Rajarsi Janakananda, where, the devotees asked, how did Rajarsi become such an elevated soul and disciple? And the answer, of course, was he learned how to listen, is what Master said. And so I feel I'm increasing my ability to, Master doesn't have to yell anymore. He can give me a little glance, or he can just say one word, and I'm behaving much better with Master, and just more subtly allowing him to guide more and more of my life. Where a friend of mine in India, he wrote a chant, one of the lines in the chant which touches me is I don't know what love is, I don't know what truth is, just replace me with you. And so I would say that is becoming more and more of a reality in my life, I just want to give myself to Master more and more. And that's what's happening. Jai Guru.
It is beautiful to understand the journey through your eyes and lens, and not through the details of your titles and from where you moved to where. I'm sure there are a lot of those too for each one of you. Well, thank you for sharing. I know all of you have significant, impactful roles now in your leadership at Ananda. I'm curious, again, perhaps if you would like to share, any of you, you can go in order, or however you want to go non-linearly. When you start your day, when you go into your work, perhaps when you enter your office or when you finish your meditation, is there an attitude, an affirmation, a prayer that sort of helps you find your attunement in your area of service, whatever it is that you do during? Some of you work a lot with people, some of you work with land, some of you do other things with computers. So is there something that you use either in the beginning of the day or throughout your day as a reminder, as an attitude, as an affirmation, a prayer? What do you tell yourself, or what do you tell Master to always know that you're acting in attunement with His will.
I can start and just be really brief with this. It's just the thing that's really helped me, that's really helped me is just, this comes from the chant, What Lightning Flash. And there's a line in that chant that Master wrote, that the life of my life is you. And so really simply, that's my ongoing affirmation and focus from when I first wake up in the morning, and really before I transition to anything throughout the day. If someone comes, knocks on my door, everything, I try to just call that to mind. The life of my life is you, and giving Him responsibility. And it's been really helpful.
I think for me, I've been trying to focus on the flow, not on the details, because our lives have so many details, and working at the Expanding, there's so many details all the time. And if you get in the details, you can miss the point of being with the person, with Master, moment to moment. And so I start my day by walking in the office and just put everything down and just look at the photo of Master, and I just said, Master, just guide me according to thy flow. And so I might have to put out the energy and where I start to go, but then if I'm going to talk with somebody and something else happens, I go with that flow, and just trying to be totally in the moment with that. And that's something I've had to work with, because I've always had a lot of energy, and I want to be really get my things done, which I want to get done in the way I think it should be done. But when you have the guest there, or when you see somebody that looks like they need attention, that needs to come first, person to person, soul to soul. So I would say it's just, person to person, soul to soul. Pardon? Oh, that's the line I say to myself, Master, help me to just go with your flow. Yeah.
What's been helpful for me, a lot of my service is busy work. I do the gift admin for fundraising, so I'm putting in things into the computer regularly. And I found just as I start my day, generally by walking to the office, I get to walk under Master's Murti. That's up by the ridge, as many of you have seen. And that's where I really start by just saying, I offer myself completely to you. And that starts from when I wake up in the morning, but really having that direction in the office has been helpful, because it reminds me in those busy moments of just putting data into the computer that every piece of it is an offering. And often some of those are from you all, and remembering that all of that is for Master in this work.
I've been rereading Light Bearer recently, and it's amazing, just time and time again, reading how the building of Ananda had so much, to your point, Sundra, all it was making sure the energy was right, and then the details followed. But it was, if the energy of the people are right and of the groups are right, then everything will flow from that. So at the farm, the plants don't have ego, so you don't have to worry about their energy. The gophers have a little bit of an ego, so you kind of have to worry about them. But really the beginning of the day is asking Master, help me have the right energy so that everything else can follow. So again, exactly what Sundar was saying, the energy, if the energy is right, then everything will follow.
So my experience of serving at the farm is that it feels to me like a huge playground, and every day I'm looking forward to going out and playing with, it could be 10 different things. So for me, oftentimes it's, there is a natural flow of just what needs to happen, but sometimes I find in myself the need to focus. And so, as many of us have been saying, it's just asking Master, okay, show me what you want to do today, and I will be your channel, and let's go have fun.
I can resonate with the playground thing. This isn't exactly the words that I use, but when I think about what I ask, it's basically just purify me through this and do it quickly.
Thy will, not mine. That's thy will, not mine, Lord. And using the prayer that Master gave us, I will reason, I will, and I will act, but guide thou my reason, will, and activity. There's so much of what we're doing, especially in our department, but all of us, I mean, really, in that work in the Sangha, it's just way bigger than we could even comprehend with our little minds. And it really requires that attunement and that surrender to that flow and what is Master trying to make happen, because we all have great ideas, all of us here have great ideas about what we could do or what could happen. And for me, it's just coming back to thy will, not mine. Just help me get out of the way so that you can, we can do this work together, that what you're trying to make happen can happen. So.
That is beautiful. I'm sure all of it is helpful for all of us too. Well, in the first question, when you were sharing your journey through these 10 years, of course, one common theme, obviously, was how close all of you have gotten to God and Gurus. Many of you mentioned feeling much more closer to Master. This may be a personal question, but if any of you would like to share, and maybe, I don't know if there's anything dramatic or not in your life, but if there are instances where you feel like there was maybe a decision, a turn in your life where you actually felt at a crossroad and you felt a clear guidance of a help, of a voice or something that helped you pick what was right or what needed to happen, something that you knew was beyond you, where perhaps it needed guidance from God and Guru in a way that you could tangibly feel, maybe an example of something from your seva so far, or even in general, personal life or professional.
I can share a little bit about my experience. I was in education for about 15 years and spent the last few years of that really immersed in education for life and working in our living wisdom schools. And I really thought that was my dharma, and maybe it still is, who knows, I don't know what. But what I really realized is that, and I was given the opportunity, asked to take on this role in fundraising, and it came suddenly and unexpectedly, the offer, you could say. And it was interesting because, it was shocking at first, and then, taking a moment with it, I realized pretty quickly, this is actually an answer to the prayer that I've been praying, which was, I want to feel more connected. I want to work with a team. I want to serve, I want to serve Master's work in some way, and I thought that way was through education for life. And it just became clear, like, this is, and that's happened a few times. I can't get into all the different times, but where something came and it was surprising and unexpected, an opportunity, something was being asked of me or something like that. And at first there was maybe a little bit of resistance, and uncertainty, and taking it into prayer and just meditation, realizing, kind of feeling, it kind of bubbled up as laughter, honestly. It was like, like, Master, I get it. This is what I'm supposed to do. Just this, it became obvious. It was just like, this wasn't how I thought it was going to play out, but just that sense of, I see. I see what you're doing here. Not how I expected, but beautiful nonetheless. And that allowed me to kind of step into it with willingness, with just full, of course,
When I was trying to figure out if I wanted to be in a relationship or not, I was, not to embarrass, but I was... Is she drawing attention or is she hiding? Nobody knows. I haven't had to make that many decisions in my life. I've never felt so. I got into exactly one high school. I got into exactly one college. When I met Swamiji, it didn't seem like even a decision. It was like a no-brainer. I want to follow him. And I happened to just be free of college, and I had nothing else going on in my life. So it didn't feel like this grand thing. The first time that I really felt like I had to make a major decision was when I met Ishani. And I don't have a lot of supernatural experiences on the path, and this wasn't one of them either. But I shouldn't have built up the expectation. But I do remember I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't logic it out in my mind, and I had always been able to. And I'm not the most logical person, but I could figure out usually what was right and wrong through that. Even with Swamiji, for some reason it made logical sense to me. Well, at least I'm spending time with a saint. This was before I had any really spiritual inclination at all, so I thought. But that made logical sense to me, but I couldn't figure this one out. And I was leaving for India, and it was, the trip was getting closer and closer, and, we were getting along very well, but I was like, should I, shouldn't I? It was very teenage angst. And I just many days, I would wake up in the morning, I would look at the picture of Swamiji there was a bookshelf. I didn't even have space in my room for an altar proper. And I would say, what do you think? And nothing. 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave for a 5-month trip to India, I'm looking at the picture, and I don't know how to explain it. There was no light, there was no sound, there was nothing other than I went from being unsure to being completely sure. And it was in his eyes. And I still can't explain it, and it's probably the only time that's happened. But I felt a direct answer to my question from Swamiji, who had only passed a few months before. It was, for me, very inconvenient timing. I could have just asked him in person before. I'd never had anything to ask him when I was with him in the body. But yeah, I just got the answer, and it was clear as day, and he was right.
Thanks for sharing that, because I have a similar story. So I'm married now to Nanda Devi from Argentina, and she is not the daughter of Mokshananda or the sister of Jaya, where a lot of people think. But she was at the village for a year or two, and then she had to go back to Argentina because of her visa. And so she was gone for 6 months or longer. And during that time, I had a lot of questions if it was the right relationship or not. And because my relationships in the past were more like Cupid getting shot with an arrow. And it was more, angels and butterflies and real joyful and loving. It was just very outward. And with Nanda Devi, it was completely different. And so when she was away, I was really questioning if that was the right relationship. So after 6 months, it was time for me to go visit her in Argentina, and I was getting more nervous about going. And so Ramesha from the village was about to take me to the airport, and I was really nervous, and I sat before my altar, and I said, Master, you have to make this really clear for me what I should do, because otherwise I'm going to have, at how I'm feeling now, I'm going to have to break it off. And in that moment, the thought came to my mind, take the ring. And I'm like, what ring? I didn't have a ring. I didn't have any sort of engagement ring. And then I realized that my friend Dharma Devi, a year earlier, gave me a ring, and she said, you're going to need this. And so, that ring. So I'm like, I remember holding it up to the altar, and I said, Master, there's absolutely no way I'm going to, how I'm feeling now, ask her to marry me, but I'm going to take it as a symbol of trust. So the moment I got to Argentina, it was very clear that was what I was supposed to do. And that was a pretty dramatic story. And so I thought I should double check, and I wrote to the astrologer Drupada, and I said, I feel like I should do this. And I wrote him, and he wrote back, he said, if you're going to do it today. And so, no, okay. So we're up at the rainforests in Argentina at that time. And so I took the ring, and I thought, well, I always wanted to honor Bharat with something significant for all the role he's played in my life. And so I used the sharing nature activity to propose to Nanda Devi, and I put the ring on a flower, and her eyes were closed, and she was the camera, and I was the photographer, and she had to open her eyes. And she opened her eyes, and she didn't do anything. Nothing happened, and I got nervous, And then when I saw the tear come down, I realized it worked. So,
It's beautiful.
Well, I don't have a proposal story. But yeah, I think that just in terms of a powerful decision, or that very precious relationship that we have with Master in our decision making, I think that has also grown over the years of feeling less of a stress or tension around it, but more it's a beautiful opportunity to enter into a space with the Guru that is very intimate, and it's one that I'm seeing more and more a sacredness around each of those moments that we do need to make a decision, and as an opportunity to deepen our discipleship. I won't fill in all the super details on this, but it was one that I was a monk for 8 years, and made the decision to transfer out of my postulant brahmachari vow, out of the monastery. And that, of course, was a big decision. But, I felt that the heart needed to take steps in a direction that, regardless of what the outcome was, that I needed to play it out. Whether I myself was unable to rise above the karma, I left all of that at Master's feet, and I marched on. So over the next 2.5 years or so, I found myself in a situation that I needed to make a decision relating to a relationship that I had got into after being a monk for so long, which was a journey within itself. But I came to this place of really needing clarity, whether, one, this relationship... Is this being filmed? It's live. Okay. Basically, it was a moment that I needed to make a decision which was very hard, because the heart was overwhelmed with love and gratitude and expansion. There was so much that was positive, hence why the decision was hard, because there was also other things happening that was causing doubt or questioning whether what's the right way forward, where the decision now may be extremely important to where I might end up 10 years, 20, 30 years. And I knew that this was a critical time in my spiritual life. I prayed, and 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 no answer, no answer, no answer. And I could feel increasingly this sense of criticalness to my spiritual life of making the right decision. I became exhausted with trying to figure out, what is your will, Master? What is your will in this? You're not saying anything. And I came to this point of just surrendering one morning at the end of meditation, feeling now is the time that I need this clarity. There's no more, I'm not accepting anything less than you telling me. And so as I sat there, I surrendered it all. And I knew that I knew I had delusion. I knew I was blocking Master from his, being able to tell me what's right. And so when I surrendered that, I heard Master come to me and say, "My love is greater than your delusion." And in that moment, it just as if this veil lifted, where all those things that I struggled with, trying to figure out what is best for myself, for the other person, for the future. And by surrendering it, by Master saying that, because I said, "Sir, I cannot hear you. I know I have this veil." And so when he came to me and said that, then it became very clear. And then from that day onwards, I feel experiencing that, going through that process, I carry that into other decision making because it's, I guess, a form of self-honesty, and in that self-honesty, a sense of openness to be able to make the right decision. So here I am.
Much a question I was asking, more of a desperate cry for help. So this is not, in this life, this is not my first incarnation serving Master on a farm at Ananda. And, and the decision to leave the first farm of Masters that I was serving was one that came with a lot of prayer and asking Master what to do, and ultimately with the decision to let go of that. And it was a very difficult decision to make, and took a while for me to let go of it and to be okay with I had left, what I was leaving behind. And so I was at Ananda Village, and I was in the Temple of Light, and in this meditation I was just really giving him all of the grief that I felt and all of everything, and just completely surrendering everything over to him. And it was amazing because he actually took it. And I felt that he took it, and it wasn't like my journey was over dealing with this, but it was a noticeable shift, and it was a very powerful experience. And there's not much to say, but it was just so reassuring to feel his love and his compassion. And I already knew it was going to be okay. It wasn't like, I was still very functional outwardly, lots of positive things still in my life, and lots of new positive things coming into my life. But there was that aspect that I was still dealing with. And when I got to the place of just pure desperation and completely giving it to him and saying, okay, this is yours, he's there for us, and he will take it.
Before I made the decision to move to Ananda Village, I was on a retreat at the village, a Bhagavad Gita retreat. And it just hit me the first day, I need to move here. And so rather than learning about the Bhagavad Gita all weekend, I just kind of thought about everything I needed to do to move to the village. And it was easy for me to quit my job. I had no attachment there, and I wasn't in a relationship, no kids. But I had a dog, and I'd had her since she was 6 weeks, and I had an attachment. But I knew that I wanted to find God in this life, and that being at the village was important. And so I prayed that weekend, and there was no calm feeling. There was no clarity until finally on the airplane home, just landing at the foot of the Tetons in Jackson Hole, I felt an answer from Divine Mother, ask Amelia. And I thought, wow, I do feel that calm feeling, but Amelia lives in a van with her husband. There's no way that they could take a dog. It's just not practical. But I need to follow through. And so the next day at work, I went up to Amelia and I said, have you thought about having a dog? And she lit up and she was like, yeah, I'm going to start volunteering at the animal shelter next week so that I can pick out a really good dog. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. How are you going to have a dog in your van? We live in the mountains. It's freezing cold. It's not practical. And she said, well, we're moving into a house in 1 month. And I said, well, I have a dog that needs a house in 1 month. And it was a really interesting experience because I didn't know them well. I'd hired them. They were a wholesome couple, Catholic, beautiful souls, but I had no relationship with them other than them being my employees. But I felt that calm inner feeling as the response, and I followed through. And as far as I know now, it's still a great relationship, and they're taking great care of my dog. So.
Smiling. It's so beautiful just to listen to each of you and to really feel the strength and the joy that comes when we're tuned in to this great line of gurus and serving this guru, which brings up a question in my mind. Each of you serve in such diverse branches and departments of Ananda, and the way that you're expressing that service varies in the details from day to day. And Sai Ganesh and I were joking before we started that we were going to ask you some kind of, desert island question, or you have 48 hours and da-da-da. So here's your desert island question. As you're going through your service every day, or in your, sprouting beautiful new little baby plants to be grown, or sprouting little baby children to be grown, or sprouting funds from all over the world, all of the beautiful things that you're doing, if you could zero in and you were on that desert island and you could only bring one quality with you that you bring every single day to help you be successful and to thrive in the way that you serve in what you do, if that's not too challenging of a question, I would love to know.
Willingness.
A person, because a community is made up of people, and really I think we all feel well, in one sense, Swami and Master, the community is a big part of their work, and each of us, I know, feels a very dynamic energy of trying to do our part to help fulfill that work. And the community is made up of people, and people is where each of us really do grow. So I don't know if a person is a quality, but a bundle of qualities.
What came to mind was wisdom, because if I were deserted on an island, remembering who this soul is would be something that could always keep me steadfast on this path.
It has to be fun. Personal growth is fun. If it's not fun, you make it fun.
Yeah, I think my answer would be similar. Joy. Just that ability to look for, to feel, to remember, to see, to experience, to channel joy in everything. It just has to be joyful, or else why are we doing it?
It's a good question. I think, just to land on something that seems more obvious for me, it would be love is really, if my heart's not in it, then no matter what I try to do to fix, that flow, it's just really hard. So trying to lead, when I enter into the office every day, I try to just another little quick check in the mind is just, I choose love. Just trying to really lead with putting my heart in what I'm doing for Master. So I think,
This might be a helpful question, a relevant question for many of us. I know perhaps other than Kevala, all of you met Swami Kriyananda in spirit. But even if some of us did perhaps, but it was not like a personal relationship, maybe Arivan had more time. A lot of our own understanding and growth has come from disciples and others who have lived with Swamiji or trained by Swamiji, not necessarily, certainly none of us have met Master, and not all of us had all that time with Swamiji. This is maybe a fun personal question too. And if anybody's in this room that you're going to talk about, they won't be too embarrassed. But if you can think of one person, somebody who has been on the path for a long time, because I think from my own life, I've realized all of these long-time leaders, members of Ananda, they all exemplify, each one of them exemplifies a certain aspect of discipleship, of attunement, and they're all such beautiful role models for us. So, and moving into the future, that is actually how many people coming now are going to receive and experience the path and also deepen their attunement. So if you want to share or think of somebody impactful in your life, whether they were your spiritual mentor or somebody you met briefly, but still some quality in them, their discipleship that touched and had an impact on you, that served as a guide for you.
Well, I'll share what just came to mind. So I had a brief period where I lived at Ananda Village, and I got to serve in a few different ways, but one of them was serving with Ananta and Maria on the farm. And I was used to, working on a farm and putting out a lot of energy and getting a lot done. And when I started working with Ananta, sometimes we would just stand there and talk for like a long time. And I would be sort of in my mind thinking like, don't we have things to do? And then I realized he cares about me, and he wants to make sure I'm okay. And that's actually more important to him than all the work we could be doing. And that was a really helpful lesson for me. Not so much because I think, at least I didn't feel like I needed that in that way, in that moment, but I needed that lesson more than I needed that personal attention. And it's still something I still love to get things done, and but it's a lesson that I have with me that people are more important, and it's really like Sundar was mentioning with the expanding light, you need to be with that person when they come to you, and so Ananta really exemplified that to me.
It's tough to single out any one person, but definitely that first batch that was with Swamiji really exemplified. I'm reminded of when Asha shares when she was driving with Swami and just on the early days and looking out at the community and just coming to a realization that, she is so committed to Swamiji, but Swamiji is committed to such a broad picture of building Ananda, and that friendship would really be to not just focus on Swami's needs, but Swami's needs more broadly, encompassing all of the community. And that's what friendship would really like. And that, to me, I guess, is what that first batch represents, and what I feel really inspired by is the commitment to Master, to take on Master's work as their own and have that sense of dynamism to share it with in as many expansive ways as possible. And so, I guess I'll keep it as that batch.
Well, I would say that Naiswami Jaya, I agree. I mean, I think that all of those who came in the early days, but then also those who have really fully dedicated themselves to serving Master's mission, and also just really prioritizing and striving for God realization. I think that just vibrationally, we're all benefiting as these souls are going deeper. Words are not needed, but just consciousness is being affected, I think, globally through these souls that are meditating and communing with God. And each moment that happens, I think that, we're all benefiting. And I think it's hard for us to see it, but I do feel that to be true. But specifically, just Naiswami Jaya has been my papa from the beginnings, because he was in Rhode Island, where the community was there, and Jaya has taught me a lot about impersonal love. And if you know Jaya, I think that's been a big lesson, I think, in this life. And he still helps me with that because he is so close and dear to me. But sometimes I want him to, Jitendra, but, he'll just, hi, Jitendra, just there's no personal love that is there, and I struggle with it sometimes. But the amount of love that I have felt from Jaya, and really, I would say my choices of moving, my first attempt moving to India in 2012, and then moving to the village was all due to his guidance. And I do feel a power of God through him in that impersonal love that is specifically a gift to me in this life. And so I'm deeply grateful for that lesson. Thanks, Jayaji.
It's hard to pick just one experience or one blessing that I've received. I actually recently thought, I feel like I could write a book, surrounded by saints, because I feel like that's been my experience. I didn't get to meet Swami, but I get to live and serve and walk this path with so many deep souls, so many saints. And one of my blessings is to get to work with Nayaswami Latika, who doesn't really give talks or isn't out there in the public. She's the chief financial officer for Ananda Church of Self-Realization of Nevada County. That's her official title. She's held a place in this work that is profound. And more than that, though, just working with her and with Atman also. I get to work, get to be on committees with Atman and Pranaba, and just these deep souls who have given everything to this work in really sometimes very mundane ways, having to deal with the material plane and the physical plane and the legal plane and, these sorts of things. And, one of the things that I keep learning is even-mindedness and patience. They are such living examples of those qualities in every circumstance. There is nothing that ruffles them, and I'm still working through that, learning those qualities, and, I'll come to Latika, well, what about this? And, oh no, what are we gonna do about, and there are big things that come up, and decisions that need to be made, and conversations that need to be had, or, just things that need to be dealt with. I think we all deal with that in our lives. And it can feel very big sometimes, the responsibility and those decisions, and what are we gonna do, and how, and what about this, and what about that? That's where that's where the rational mind goes, all the what ifs and what abouts. And I've yet to get a response from Latika in the way that sometimes I'm looking for, which is, oh yeah, just like that empathy, or that yeah, you're right, this is really hard, I don't know what we're gonna do. Never. It is always positive. There's always a solution. Even if we can't see it, there's always a possibility. It's just this unshakable, this quality of being unshakable. And we all have that in us, and it's so beautiful to work with those who express that, not only express that, but like you were saying, just exude that vibration and that consciousness and draw that out. I feel they're drawing it out in me also and showing me what's possible. There's a different way of doing this. You don't have to get overwhelmed. There's just, it's all gonna work out. And it's not just this airy-fairy idea of oh, it'll all be fine. It's built on experience, a lot of experience, a lot of difficult experience. And look how they turned out. So there's something to this path and sticking with it. It's such a blessing.
One time we were in a meeting, several of us, and there was a challenging situation with a challenging person, and Atman just said very quietly, he said, do not forget about the power of Kriya Yoga that changed this person's life. And I was like, of course. Isn't that what, we read in autobiography, and that equation of how one Kriya can be like 1 year of natural evolution. And when you think of those who have been here for so long, and thank you all for everyone who started Ananda here, thank you so much, because you're living examples of the teachings of Master. And it's just, Bharat, one time I was going to him, many times I would go to him for like some counseling, and something that was always interesting, the way his approach. He would never let me talk normally. He would just start telling stories and laughing, and most of the time I didn't understand what he was trying to say. But at the end of it, my energy and consciousness was so uplifted, I didn't even know why I went there anymore. But there's just something saying about that idea of being in the presence of of people who really love God. And so I would say Bharat, but really not just Bharat, but because there's even those really people like Prakash, who works with the tractors, and he's so humble, and he's so inspiring. He's 81, and he's been going to the sadhanas at the Expanding Light more and more, doing the yoga postures, and just he's inspiring. And his bathtub is right next to his bed, or maybe his bathtub is his bed. I don't like. He might. Really. It's so small, and he just lives this simple life, and it's just so inspiring in a completely different, humble way. Yeah.
I've been blown away just by all the inspiring people I've met in the last few years through Ananda. And I think the one that comes to mind is someone that really showed me, just by watching their behavior, how to give people complete attention and love. And that was Narayani when she was visiting last year at the village for 3 months. And I noticed at events and whenever we were together that she always gave this complete, undivided attention and her full heart to everyone she was engaged with. And that was something that I really admired, and it was inspiring to see, because that's something I need to work on in this life. And so seeing that, not just from Narayani, but so many people at the village, really giving you the time and the energy. And I'll say Jitendra is one of those people, as he's been a leader for me in the experience of Chandi. No matter what is going on, he gives me his full attention. And I remember just a few weekends ago, I went to knock on his door at 10 in the morning when there was some drama happening, and, to seek his help. And he comes to the door, and he'd probably just said that little prayer, and he was wearing his dhoti, and I was like, how are you doing? And it smelled like puja in there. He said, great, I'm just going to meditate and, be in this flow all day long. And I said, well, you're going to have to listen to what I'm about to say. And he heard me out with full attention, and I remember seeing 30 minutes later him zip up his jacket and head over to Atman's to have a little discussion. But that was just inspiring. He had a full day planned to himself, and the way that he just pulled everything together and with his full heart knew, I need to figure out how to make this better. And I'm going to do it, even though that wasn't my plan today.
I will add seva. And, I grew up here, so I've known Ananta for my whole life. Gary would also qualify. But seva is someone who came to mind because she's somebody who expressed to me, I came in at the very end of her incarnation as well, just like Swamiji's, but she expressed the quality of unconditional joy in a way that I was just so mesmerized by. I can count on one hand the number of actual conversations we had, because most of the time when we would see each other, we would just look into each other's eyes and spontaneously laugh. And something like that would have seemed so awkward to me before the spiritual path or before meeting someone like her. But I would just look into her eyes, and all I wanted to do was laugh. And we would literally just look at each other, laugh, and then go back about our days. That was the whole interaction. And when I would look into her eyes, I could see joy. It was actually, for me, it was also very comforting because it was like looking in Swamiji's eyes. And so I had been, working and traveling with Swamiji, and when he left, I was feeling there was a personal element of loss there. And when I looked into her eyes, I realized, oh, no, he's not gone. He's there, and then if he's there, he can be everywhere. And so I'll always be grateful for Seva for showing me that in the way that she expressed her joy.
Just have one little follow-up, is that okay? Just another story of Bharat was his constant positivity all the time, despite having so many continuous health struggles again and again and again. One time he was having a high fever and tremendous pain, and finally they called the ambulance because I think he was kind of like sprawled out on the floor in pain. And he gets up and he just starts talking and joking with the ambulance drivers like it was nothing, and engaging and asking them about his life and telling jokes. And they thought he was fine, but his appendix had just burst, or had burst like a day or two earlier. But that whole time, he was just constantly positive, and now that's inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. This will be our last question before we end our time together. And this is not a personal question, and I think all of us would love to hear from each one of you. It's been 12 years since Swami passed away, and it still feels like we're always in this cusp of some great expansion. There's so much happening, and I'm sure we are going to hear from some of you on Sunday as well about that. I think we would all love to hear from you, both based on your area of service, but also your experience with Ananda and your perspective all these years, what you see, over the next decade, not in your own personal life, but for Master's work in this world, again, maybe related to what you do, or perhaps even more broadly, if you want to briefly, if all of you want to share one by one, how you see that, because obviously you all are meant to play a part in that too.
I'll start. I have my role in service has become extremely specific in the last year. It used to be that in India, I was doing education and education for life, but I also felt, a part of, obviously I still feel a part of Ananda, but in terms of actually being able to, offer a class here and there and do satsang and things like that. Lately, it just feels like my entire consciousness it's unable to escape education, which is a good thing, but it is new. And so I'll just share that I've been meeting parents for the last month in this area, and 7, 8 meetings a week for the last 3 or 4 weeks, just speaking about education, about their lives, hearing about their stories. And I think that we are it's kind of like the canary in the coal mine. I feel that what parents are now looking for in education is going to be reflective of the world that is coming. And it's a world that is, I think, more interested than ever in self-realization, whatever phrase they use to call it. And so I think that there is going to be an explosion of people. It's unfortunate, it'll come through suffering. That's how most of the parents come. They suffered in their education and they want something better for their children. But we're, I think, going to see the same in people. And the fact that there is, with our school, the fact that there's a school that's been running for 32 years and has been doing this, training children essentially in self-realization, though we wouldn't call it that and they wouldn't call it that, that's what's happening. The same thing can be said for Ananda. We've been preparing for 50 plus years, and all of that effort, who's been thankfully also helping souls all along the way, I think it's really going to explode soon, in part because the world is probably on the verge, on the precipice of larger than usual amount of suffering. But the fact that there are so many people who are here, and by here I just mean in Ananda, so that's around the world, who've dedicated themselves to their own self-realization, we're going to be ready to help. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
I think one thing I see in our particular area of service is that, in a way, I guess, farming and food is like a universal language, but we are given the opportunity to infuse Master's vibration into what we do, and so we're kind of communicating with people through this language that everybody relates to, but we're talking about something else. And I feel like in many ways that's how Master's teachings and mission will expand. It will just be through every individual who feels connected to his teachings expressing that in everything they do. It's not like we're, we do have a small meditation group forming at the farm now, but we're not teaching meditation. We're not directly teaching people these teachings or telling them about Master, but we're sharing him in every smile and every, the way we can set up our display with beauty and just reaching out to people with friendship and love that comes from him. I think that will, that's a huge way that his work will expand.
It feels like more and more people will find meaning in life, which I think many don't feel a sense of purpose or know why they're doing what they're doing, or just have that sense of meaning behind their life. And for us, looking at how our broader Ananda communities have grown, it feels like there's just been an increase in the amount of opportunity or creation of ways for people to be inspired, and also giving people meaningful ways of serving. So I think, at least on the farm, that's one area or two areas that we would also feel like Master will spread, is just finding more ways where we can create inspiring events and ways for people to feel that sense of just life within themselves, and then also finding ways for people to serve meaningfully. And probably across the board, Ananda, that's going to continue to grow.
I think I'm still tuning in, but from a personal perspective, I can say that I found this path, through the online teachings and the offerings on YouTube, and that dynamic outreach that happens to anyone, anywhere in the world. And I think that's what's going to continue to expand, become more accessible, and people, wherever they are suffering, will be able to find those resources.
I greatly appreciate the decentralization of Ananda, how all the communities are separate, but at the same time, we're tied through united consciousness and our ability to rise above any sort of separateness and things like that, and just in our love for God and Guru. And I say this because recently, I've noticed at the Expanding Light, more people from SRF coming. And there's 2 Karma Yogis there now who have been with SRF, and they said, after Inner Renewal Retreat, they said, we've never heard the teachings explained like this before. And that's inspiring. And, we sang Lord Most High. When I first came to Ananda, a group of us went to Encinitas, and we sang that for one of the main brothers there. And I remember he had tears in his eyes. And some devotees from Ananda Village recently went down and sang some of Swami songs inside Mount Washington in the library there. And so there's been more connections I've been seeing recently with devotees from SRF coming. So it's just interesting. And I was talking to one of the brothers, Nanda Devi and I, and some friends from Ananda Dallas were just down in the gardens. And we were talking to this one monk for a long time. He says, isn't it wonderful that we're not fighting anymore? And I just said, yeah, isn't it wonderful we're looking above the outer differences to our inner unity? And I think more and more that's what's going to be like, because as we go into more Dwapara Yuga, it's not going to be about the form, it's going to be about the consciousness, and that united love for God and Guru, that's what's going to prevail. So.
We met with Jyotish and Devi recently, the fundraising team, just trying to tune into what's next, and just how to tune into what we're doing. And one thing Devi said at our recent Sangha meetings was that we've really taken fundraising and turned it into a ministry. And it's not just about what do we need, what are we trying to accomplish, but thinking about what do others need. And I was thinking about this, and I was remembering, serving on the farm with Ananda one summer. All I had time for was to go over and help with the cucumbers, tie up the cucumbers. And every time he saw me, he'd be like, "Oh, it's Erin, she's doing our cucumber ministry." That's what he would say. And it was cute, but also I think it touches on something, which is that everything we do as disciples is a ministry. And what does that mean? It's that we're thinking, what can I give? What can I give to others? What does the world need? What does this person in front of me need? What is needed? And how can we give that? And I think that's the past, present, and future of this ray of Ananda and how we're living it. So.
Yeah, it's quite incredible what's happening right now. I came into the world of online in 2014, and we had our path of Kriya we had about, let's say, 15 to 20 people registering for step 1. From there, numbers declined. I taught the discipleship course. Pranabha was teaching, Nayaswami Pranabha was teaching the discipleship course into about 2016 or so. I stepped into that role. And so when I talked to Pranabha, thinking, how many students do you have? And he said 3. So we had about 3 or 4 in the discipleship course, and then a couple would go into to Kriya prep, and so forth. We had a virtual community at the time, and we had about maybe 50 people in the community, which was wonderful. So now, fast forward to present moment, it also, just to say, we had 4 cohorts of these batches, let's say Path of Kriya, which had these 20 students in them. We did this 4 times per year, teaching these batches. So now we do 8 batches, and we have a estimation 130 people per group. So virtual community now is 350. I mean, the numbers are just really reflecting about one thing, that people are turning to Master. And I could go on and on with so many stories of individuals who are in a state of suffering or who are seeking that something else in their life, and they simply just turn their head, and what's in front of them is a door, which is welcome to Ananda. And we could say, oh, it's the marketing, it's this, it's that, but it's Master, and it's his children, it's his disciples who are thousands, millions upon millions in the world who are awakening. And I think that it's less of a focus for me of the numbers, though that surely is reflecting the growth of the work. But it's more a good reminder of, just as we ourselves continue to remain focused on, as what many others have shared, that the focus isn't so much of what we need, as Erin was saying, but how can we give Master's vibration, give Swamiji's vibration to all these souls, and we can leave the rest to Master to figure out. But the focus that this work, if this work is producing saints, then everything in the future will continue to grow, and I surely am seeing that unfold before my eyes. So I think that as we continue to go deeper, the outward influx of souls coming to Ananda to find God is going to just increase, beyond compare. So, and it's a blessing to come to this community and see all of you saintly souls who are doing just that. So, Jai Guru.
So much for sharing your joy and your wisdom and your laughter with us. I think let's just end with just a couple minutes of meditation and a visualization, sitting up straight. Let's just visualize all of the masters, Yogananda Ji in particular, surrounding the planet, holding all souls, uplifted in their light. And let's feel that energy that is Ananda, that vibration of consciousness with all of its power to express joy, emanating from all of our centers, Ananda Village, Palo Alto, all of our centers in Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, Sacramento. And just visualizing all of our meditation centers across the planet, Assisi, all of our centers in India, beacons of light, filled with masters, energy and consciousness. Visualize that light enveloping the whole planet as a conscious, visceral force with the power to uplift all souls. Seeing and holding that light even into the future. All that we don't yet see or know, but what we feel is the true potential of Ananda, the energy of Yogananda Ji, Swami Kriyananda, all of our brothers and sisters around the planet. And finally, feeling the very center of our own hearts, each one of us as a beacon of that light, a part of that collective consciousness of joy, with the ability to awaken and uplift, to be a channel of Divine Mother's love. Let's pray together. Divine Mother, Thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all Thy children. Manifest Thy healing presence in all bodies, minds, and souls.